work. I have
Okay, so this is the Auburn School Committee meeting, July 29th, 2020. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Do we have citizens' comments? It doesn't look like anybody is waiting in the wings. Do we have special recognitions?
Not today.
No, okay. Can I get approval of the minutes from July 22nd?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 22nd.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Dr. McCrillis?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
yes.
Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
And myself, Mrs. Harrington, yes. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hanfield for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, welcome. It's nice to see all of you, and welcome to those of you who are listening out in the community. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to my coach. As you're aware, I'm enrolled in the new superintendent's induction program, otherwise called NISIP. This program includes a number of workshops and coaching sessions that have been the Mass Association of School Superintendents. And joining us today as an observer, although he has his camera on, which is good, I'm glad he put his camera on, is my coach, Dr. John Brackett. Dr. Brackett holds a doctorate in education from Stanford University. And his impressive career includes time as a classroom teacher and high school principal in California, and successful tenures as a superintendent in both Michigan and Massachusetts, where he retired from the Sudbury Public Schools. He now does consulting work in a variety of areas related to education and leadership. And I can't tell you how invaluable he's been in just these few weeks. So, Dr. Brackett, welcome to the meeting. I'm not sure if you want to say hello or just wave or. No, you're muted.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to working with Casey and Auburn throughout the year. I'll be back to talk with you at a later time when it's not quite as crunched with the things that are on your plate. So I just wanted to say hello, and thanks for allowing Casey to be part of the program. I know when I started as a superintendent, I just wish there was a program like this.
That's great. Well,
Thank
welcome.
you.
We're happy to have you. And we are lucky to have Casey. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, go ahead, Casey.
It's okay. So under unfinished business, as I had mentioned to you last week, class of 2020 is graduating this Friday, July 31st. I did send an invitation, an email invitation to all of you, so thank you for getting back to us on that. Attached also is the promised protocols that went to families after an exhaustive review with Darlene Coyle, who heads the Auburn Board of Health and Department of Inspectional Services. The weather seems to be cooperating. It's going to be a little less cool and a little less humid. We're very excited to be able to celebrate the class of 2020 in a safe manner on Friday night. So it'll be a bit of a, well, I shouldn't say a bit, it'll be quite a streamlined event. We are not having, just to kind of give people the details, we are not having a processional. Students will come to the site, the graduation site, which is Memorial Field at the high school, with their 4 family members. They will travel in packs from their vehicles to the fields. They will sit together in groups of 5, and we will be, calling them, to the podium with staff around the square of where the graduates and their families will be sitting, with faculty members ensuring there's 6 feet of distance at all times. We also have faculty and staff that will be helping with traffic flow in and out of assigned gates and expediting exit when the ceremony is over. We are, we're taking pretty much every precaution we can. We have hand sanitizers at every gate that we'll be asking people to utilize. We've asked people to bring their own hand sanitizer as well, if they feel the need to use that during the ceremony. We will have some student speakers on the stage. We will be wiping down microphones in between use of those, and we will have the national anthem being sung, but it will be in accordance with DPH guidelines, which is 10 feet of distance laterally and 25 feet of distance before the front row of the ceremony. So the individual singing the national anthem from our select choir, they'll be using wireless microphones that are one-time uses, and we won't be needing to sanitize those. So those are the highlights of the plan. You can see the rest of the plan, as I included in the packet. We're finalizing seating and whatnot right now, and so we'll send out the site plans and exact seatings to families when they arrive. They'll have assigned seating by number, and they'll be seated in sections that will correspond to parking lots designated around the site. So we can, like I said, expedite entry and exit in a safe manner in accordance with social distancing protocols. We will also have 6 feet markers on the sidewalks should there be a line at any one gate. But we are assigning approximately 60 families per gate to expedite exit and entry into the site. So we feel we're in good shape, and I know our families are excited, as are our graduates, to have this night for them. We won't be reading scholarships just because, in the interest of time, we're trying to limit our time on the field. However, I will acknowledge our generous donors and direct people to review the listing of scholarships in the graduation programs. And then that's really it. I'm streamlining my words to them. I was thinking about, this is my 15th one, my last one, and I was thinking, how do you kind of cut down, but yet make it, a speech that's appropriate for a graduation. And there are 4 or 5 things that over the years, students and their families have always come back to me with, that they say, I always remember this about your speech. And so, I'll wish the kids well, and I've watched many of them grow up. My son is in this graduating class, so I've been with him for a long time. Offer them 4 or 5 lines of wisdom from Dr. Hanfield, for whatever it's worth. And then move on to the conferral of diplomas. And then from there, we will then have an orderly exit off the site. So we're anticipating no more than an hour. Having not done this before, it could be plus or minus that. We are not practicing in order to limit interaction among kids. So we're going to kind of build it as we fly it, but that's okay. I think we'll be all right. We have pretty good directions in place, and it'll be a nice night for our kids. They've had a lot taken from them, because of COVID. So looking forward to that.
I agree. Sounds like a well planned out event. Lots of hand sanitizer should be flowing. So. Lots
of hand sanitizer will be flowing. Yes. Yes. Mr. Fahey and I were discussing that at 7:30 this morning. So we have the batches arriving tomorrow.
Oh, good.
We'll be all set.
Through the chair, I just have one question about, the traditional photos afterwards. I know, typically everyone's on the field, they take pictures with their teachers, etc. How are we handling that, or have they already had a chance to do that in the smaller setting?
Yeah, great question. So, some of our kids, just kind of when we gave them their, if you remember back in May, myself and I think probably 18 or 19 of our staff divvied up all the kids' senior graduation grab bags, and we delivered them all to homes. In that bag was their cap and gown. So a lot of kids have already done that. A lot of kids are already doing that up through this week because they know that they can't really be on the site, at all. Once we're over, everyone's got to, leave the site. So they've been doing that, kind of on their own. And if you social around social media a little bit, you'll see the caps that are being decorated and the photos that the families are already taking. And it's really nice. As part of the ceremony itself, as the graduate comes across the stage, they'll acknowledge whomever is on the stage, in a 6 foot of distance way. There'll be no touching. They will then proceed to the end of the stage where their diploma will be on a table. There'll be a yearbook for them to get as well. And then they'll just take their mask off super quick. Case and Foster is going to take a headshot,
Okay.
mask back on, and then they're back to their seats. So there'll be at least some sort of formal photo, you know, if families desire that. But any of the
Okay.
congregating that we would normally see in the fraternization, et cetera, we just can't have that, you know, unfortunately, under the guidelines.
Okay. No, thanks. I'm glad they're getting to do that in some form. I know it's a big deal. So
Yeah, no, big deal. And it was a lot of planning, but well worth it. So we're happy to be able to do it.
thank you.
Great. Thank you. Return to school update. As we had talked last week about return to school, this continues to be obviously a hot button topic for good reason across the state. Last week, we brought to you a proposal to start the school year in a hybrid fashion, something we were calling the 2-1-2 model, which would have cohort A in the building Monday, Tuesday. We would have a break on Wednesday for cleaning. Cohort B would be in on Thursday, Friday, and then we would have the weekends up for cleaning. This plan was something that we were developing based on guidance from the department, you know, from DESE in Malden. After we had our meeting late last week, as you may have heard on the news, you know, there was some interesting developments with the release of transportation guidance and the severe limiting of students riding school buses. There was also some activity between the commissioner and the MTA at the state level around, you know, kind of demands that they would like to see for teachers within the state. In a follow-up conversation with the commissioner after those events, he softened his stance a little bit on, you know, what the exact expectations of DESE were. From June up until last week, the messaging was, you know, we're trying, you know, to put kids back into school full time. And if we're not able to get them into school full time, we want them back into school in a hybrid fashion as soon as possible. And we were kind of, I don't want to say we were limited in the models that we were using, but slightly limited in the models that we were using. And so we brought the 2-1-2 model forward. With the softening of the stance from the commissioner's office, and where he asserted, I think for the first time publicly, that in fact, you know, decisions on return to school by school districts are LEA decisions. You know, on Friday, I started to rethink the manner within which we would return to school. We're all concerned about the ability for us to phase into school safely. We are concerned not only about our teachers and our students, but we're concerned about our bus drivers, our custodians, our lunch staff, anyone who works in the Auburn Public Schools, transitioning back into this quote unquote new normal in a way that makes sense. We are not returning, as we were discussing this morning as administrators, we are not returning to anything that's normal as it relates to what school was like on March 12th when we last were in the building. So I started rethinking, you know, perhaps, you know, a slight alteration to our restart schedule for hybrid instruction. And so as was passed in the motion last week, you know, anytime that we would have an alteration to the school year, I would bring it back to the committee. Didn't necessarily think it was going to come this fast, but yet here we are. So the consideration that we'd like to bring forward for the restart to the school year is to start in what we're calling a 1-2-1-1 model. School would start on approximately September 16th. That is the number of days we've calculated approximately based on the 10 days of delayed school start that the commissioner eventually did work out with the MTA. And within that, that first week of school, which we're looking at September 21, we would bring our kids back in a 1-2-1-1 fashion. Essentially, we'd be bringing cohort A in for half of a school day on a Monday. We'd be bringing cohort B in on half of a school day on a Thursday. That following week, September the 28th, we would be bringing students back for a full day on Monday. That would be cohort A, and cohort B comes back for a full day on Thursday. And then starting the week of October 5th, we would be looking to drive towards bringing our kids back in the 2-1-2 model that was passed by the school committee last week. Obviously, you know, some of the issues that we're concerned about and that we want to address in this phased in opening, again, as I mentioned at the outset, is, you know, just the you know, the care and concern for everyone's transition back in during some of those half days and full days in those first couple of weeks. We're doing trainings with our students about COVID, what it is. We're doing PPE trainings. We're discussing, you know, why it's safe, you know, and why we need to be having, you know, safe hygiene practices and distancing, and, you know, just being very mindful, you know, of the new kind of operational rules of our school building. We also want to be able to take some time during that as well to get kids to get used to wearing their masks and have appropriate mask breaks. And we also make sure that we are doing, we also want to make sure that we are doing the appropriate social and emotional screenings of our kids as well. So we kind of know what we're dealing with as we get ready to embark on you know, a new academic year. And then we would be looking to do something around, you know, kind of academic benchmark testing to see where kids are, as they've really been out of school for 3 months, but obviously with the remote learning plan, it's 6 months. So we would be looking to do something around the academic achievement of kids in that, you know, first or second week of October. Obviously, all of this is predicated upon, you know, what the national, state, and local, you know, health guidelines are as it relates to COVID. You know, there are slight upticks in COVID around, you know, around us. And, you know, part of that obviously is attributable to, you know, just kind of reopening. But we want to just make sure that we're taking a very cautious and well-contemplated approach for everybody so that, you know, we can do this the right way. And so I bring that back to you for consideration at this time.
Okay, thank you. I think what we will do is start with the motion and then have discussion after that. So can I get a motion?
Jesse, I'm going to interrupt. I'm not ready to vote on a motion until I understand this a little bit better.
Well, can we at least start it and then discuss after the motion is opened, or?
I'll make them. I just have to find it to make it the exact word.
It's not passing. We're just opening it up for discussion.
I'll make a motion to open up to discussion. The Auburn Public Schools adopt and implement modification of hybrid option B for a 2-1-2 model. To half or full will be decided by the superintendent. The academic model will remain in effect until such time the superintendent determines, based upon the available information, that a modification of this model is warranted based on health data and recommendations from DESE, the CDC, and or other organizations that would inform the decision.
Can I get a second?
Second, apologies.
Okay, so we can open it up for discussion. Gail, would you like to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Casey, going back to September 16th, I
Yes.
don't understand what you mean with 1-2-1-1.
Sure. No, and I appreciate that. So I'm happy to clarify. So, so the state of Massachusetts, right, and the MTA, right, they agreed to a 10-day delay on the start, a delay to the start of the school year. So that puts us at approximately September 16th for the beginning of the school year.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we are slowing down by 2 weeks the implementation of the 2-1-2 model that we voted on last week, or that you voted on last week.
Yeah.
So all that we're doing here is if the 2-1-2 model has cohort A and B coming in 2 days a week, you know, successively, what we're seeking to do here is to drop that down to 1 day a week to start, so that essentially the 1-2-1-1 model is basically kids are remote. The 2 stands for A and B come in on Monday and come in on Thursday for a half day the week of September the 21st. They come back for 1 full day the week of September 28th. And then if everything is good with health data and whatnot, then we move to the 2-1-2 model that we talked about last week. So it's just slowing down the physical entry of school for students, staff, and all of the school personnel.
I hate to beat a dead horse, but I still don't get it. The one is cohort A coming in. Is it a half a day or a whole day?
So September the 21st, on Monday, it would be cohort A coming in for one half of a school day.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's remote Tuesday, Wednesday. On Thursday of that week, it's cohort B coming in for half of a school day. Then the week of September 28th, instead of the kids coming in once for a half a day, they're coming in once for a full day. So cohort A comes in one full day on that Monday, and then cohort B comes in for one full day on that Thursday. And then provided everything is good with the health data and everything else, we're able to bring kids back. In the week of October 5th, we would be bringing students back in. Cohort A comes in Monday and Tuesday for 2 full days in person. Cohort B comes back on Thursday, Friday, 2 full days in person. And we resume that 2-1-2 cycle until such time we have to go forward or back based on health data. That's all. So it's a phased, it's a kind of a slower phased in start to the school year.
Now, on the half days, will the teachers try to get in, or will they schedule everybody in for a shorter period so they see all of them, or is that going to be broken up?
So no, so it'll be on the half days. It'll be the same way we're breaking up the cohorts now. It's just that they'll have those kids just for a half a day to start, and a half a day to start in cohort B. So all the cohort A kids that were coming in for hybrid, they will all come in for that half day on that Monday. Cohort B comes in for all of that day on that Thursday for a half a day. And then they come back for a full day the week of the 28th, and then they come back 2 full days each starting October 5th. Again, it just kind of eases the progression back into school so that we can, do some, like I said, PPE training, allow them to get used to wearing masks, get used to kind of the operational aspects of the schools. And it gives others, i.e. bus companies, custodians, teachers, it gives everybody kind of just a chance to kind of slowly dip back into in-person schooling. Whereas before, we felt we were kind of having to go right off the bat with a 2-1-2 model because of what we were being told by the Department of Education. When that stance softened last week in their conversations with MTA, then from my standpoint, I felt it was better to ease in rather than to have everybody show up first day of school, and it's a full day and there's all these things to get used to. And, so that's why I felt like, an incremental approach will serve everybody better.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Somewhat.
Okay, all right.
I have a question, and Beth, you might be able to answer this for me. With younger children, talking pre-K, kindergarten, maybe even grade 1, I know some districts are doing half days with those kids because of probably, I'm guessing, social emotional as well as the eating. There's a lot more support needed for kiddos at that age to eat a lot more close proximity. Any thoughts on that? I know, you taught in that age group for a while. So what are your thoughts?
Well, so I think in the hybrid, so no matter what, I think we have to remember that when we have the kids in school, we're going to have half the children we normally have, or about half, and I do think that it's going to require some training and preparation for sure to help the kids understand how it's going to work, but I think they can do it. I really do. I think preschool is going to be a bit of a different animal, I think, because some of those kids are really babies. But
Yeah.
what we see with our kindergarten kids is they get routines and they can learn that. And I think the fact that we're really going to be managing half the students that we normally do, no matter what, I think it's going to make it even more manageable. But I will say that we did talk about today to make sure that we have some meetings with families, both in large groups, but one-to-one with families too, before school starts, to kind of get a sense of maybe what a family is worried about for a particular student, right? Because we know they all have their particular needs. And so we're hoping to maybe, and this has to be talked about with the union as well, but to maybe have some time to, during those 10 days, to be reaching out to families so that we have a really good understanding of our kids before they get there. And we also have the opportunity to share some of our expectations with them, right? So I think it can be worked out given the lower numbers that are going to be in the classrooms. I think, you know, it's going to take work. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but I think they can do it. Rosemary and I are meeting tomorrow related to preschool because
I'm concerned about preschool full day, I have to say. Just, you know, having that young of children all day, concern there. I think the other kids could do it, yeah.
And honestly, I don't know that we can do full day, right? So what we may be looking at is for anybody who wanted full day, maybe they're doing that 2-1-2 half day, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. So we want to look at our counts. It's interesting. We've had a number of folks who said they are not coming, and yet we continue to get calls for people who want to enroll. Mm-hmm. So we really have to take a look at, and besides that, DESE really wants to make sure that we're providing good support to those students with special needs.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what's the best way to do that? So that's going to be our next hurdle. We've kind of put it on the back burner, trying to get the K-12 folks on board. But I don't know that we can have them in for full days. So yeah. I think we're thinking along the same lines.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So through the chair, I have a couple of questions and comments. If you're finished, Meg?
I am, yes.
Okay, thanks. So actually, if we can stay on the younger children just while we're there, I am wondering, I guess, what kind of feedback we've gotten already for the younger grades, so K-2, in wearing a mask all day, given that DESE said that the directive from DESE states that it is recommended but not mandated. So have we gotten any feedback from parents on that? Because I think that is my biggest concern in terms of the little kids being able to just sit all day in a mask, like in a seat and not move around. So have we gotten any feedback from parents of our little ones yet?
I think initially, I don't have the survey results up right now. We did ask that question about mask wearing, but some of the things we do have in place or plan to have in place is when Dr. Hanfield communicates with the community is first of all to encourage all of our kids and families to be practicing and wearing masks now. You know, it is our intent that they wear them, but at the younger ages, and I've met with Mrs. Stanek and Mrs. Mahan at Bryn Mawr and Packagug regarding their schedules. They're building in, particularly at the start of the year, numerous opportunities for mask breaks. Now that's a logistical thing because they encourage that everybody's outside. You can't have everyone outside at once. That defeats the purpose. So they are scheduling that in very frequently so that it's not, you know, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon for our youngest children. It might be 3 in the morning. It might not be for a full 15 minutes. Maybe it's for 10 minutes, but they're working all of that out now because they fully recognize that I think if we try and push them to wear them for extended periods of time, we're going to create additional problems down the road. So the beginning of the year, as they're acclimating to that, it's going to be quite frequent that they're allowed to do that. So.
Okay. Thank you. That's encouraging to hear because I've even gotten some feedback around parents holding their kids back a year from starting kindergarten because they just don't want to even deal with it. Whereas I think what we need to really try to do with whatever we do with our plan is to really get the parents buy-in, you know, to understand that, you know, we're not going to try to ask the impossible of your students. We do have a level of expectation that we don't want everyone to come in with a reason why their kids shouldn't wear a mask because it's just difficult to do. I mean, even adults don't want to do it, let's be honest. But I'm glad to hear that we have
And I think as much as the kids are going to need the break, I think the staff is too, because like even me here at work, I'm in my office, but when I'm by myself, I don't wear a mask. So I'm at work, but I'm not wearing it all day. And folks that have been at home, I don't think are wearing them all day. So even staff is going to have to build up that kind of stamina to do that. And we are encouraging that full-heartedly that they're allowed to do that. This transition is going to look like no other, and we have to accept that. You know what? We're not starting math on day 2. right? There'll be some academics, but we have a lot of other things that have to get in place that are more important to start the year, like acclimating to that new idea of wearing that mask during the day.
Okay, thank you. And then my only other concern, so I do support the motion, but what I would certainly ask, and I'm glad to see that it was in the motion, is that we reserve the right to revisit this at any point that we think that we are seeing a lack of safety, specifically around meal times. Sure. A lot of my own personal hesitation with doing a full day to start is really around meal times, because even, office places aren't getting this right with adults that have been trained. So I'm certainly hesitant around that. However, it sounds like we're going in with a plan. So I just want to reserve the right to come back and say, if we're seeing other schools, either in other parts of the country or either in Mass that haven't tried or that are a little bit ahead of us, I just want to really keep our ear to the ground for anything around that, because I know that we can't make the risk zero, but I really want to drive that number down as far as we can. Again, and that the point is not, it's not to make it rigid, it's to get as many parents to feel comfortable with bringing their kids back.
So through the chair, if I may. So that's an excellent point. One of the things so what does the next, month or so look like, right? So the next month or so, we are, as part of our reentry plan, so we'll be submitting a very brief, 400-word, blurb from Auburn to the Department of Education that states this is what our full in-person, possibility is, and what our capacity to do that is at this point. Then we offer them, this is what we're doing for a hybrid plan, and then we have to then, give them kind of a quick blurb on what our remote plan is. That's just like a little touchstone for them to look at. We then are required to submit a much more comprehensive reopening plan that is due August 10th. We were on a phone call with the commissioner starting at 12:30 right before we jumped into this meeting, and that date hasn't changed. But it's kind of think of it as a first read document, if you will. They want to kind of see what our outlines are, and we have opportunities to go through that document, through August and review that. Within that document are going to be very, tight protocols as it relates to what you're discussing right now. Food, lunch protocols, medical protocols. Any protocol that's going to be part of the reopening of the schools is going to be in this document. So the committee and others as well, the Return to School Committee, will have an opportunity to revisit, the initial guidelines and weigh in with concerns and any changes to language or procedure that we feel is necessary, or that they feel is necessary. But also knowing too that we are developing our reopening plan in concert with very strict guidance and clear guidance and suggestion from the T.H. Chan School of Public Health at Harvard University, as well as Brigham and Women's Hospital and Ariadne Labs. And they have worked this document up for all school districts in Massachusetts to use as they will with respect to creating a comprehensive reentering plan that goes from hygiene to remote learning to in-person learning to how do we screen people for potential illness, and it goes on and on. So that's the guiding document that we're using that comes from very credible public health and medical professionals. So using that as a guide, your input as a committee, input of Return to School team, input of our admins, union, so on and so forth, I feel like we'll have a pretty good plan to bring forward around that. But as you said, within this motion, at any point, whether it's public health data goes up, with increased COVID cases, or we're just not feeling like we should be starting in person at all, without hesitation, where we're meeting weekly, and we will be having that conversation.
Great, thank you. And I know in our last meeting, I actually asked about, point of contact rapid testing. I was really pleased to hear in Governor Baker's address on Monday, that he has actually already made a pitch at the federal level to get this for this. I truly believe that that would be a game changer across the board for everyone in Massachusetts in terms of their level of comfort with sending their kids back to school. So fingers crossed that we get that, but that would certainly even make me more comfortable with all the things we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think, and I think too, through the chair, I think too, with the delay, that we're going to experience, to the reopening of school, we're looking at almost, 7-8 weeks before we're receiving kids potentially in person.
Right.
We will start on the 16th, but more than likely in discussion with the union, I think Beth and I, Dr. Chamberlain and I will meet with them tomorrow to finalize this information. But I think the thinking will be that we start remote 16, 17, 18 for all our kids, and then we start receiving them. Cohort A comes in that half day on that following Monday. Cohort B is in on that following Thursday. And so a lot can happen between now and then, so we keep our fingers crossed, like you said, that things continue to trend down here in the state, and that there's some movement, on a rapid testing situation for everyone. So points well taken.
Well, thank you. Those are all the questions I had for now.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and I think last meeting, Meg and Dottie brought up the phased approach, which I feel like this definitely addresses and is a great plan. I agree with you, Dot. There are some kinks that could be worked out, but I think we have 60 days to, work those out. So this is really just maybe just like a first reading, and it's certainly a motion that will evolve. I think it's a work in progress, but we got to get the air balloon off the ground, if you will. So this is like baby steps. But Gail, did you have any more concerns or questions?
I was mostly confused by the two.
Sorry, I apologize. Yeah.
That was what was throwing me for a loop.
I apologize.
What two was happening?
I apologize. As I was sitting here thinking, as we were having this conversation, how can I bet this is the ultimate teacher issue, right? How can I explain this so you understand?
There you go.
Essentially, it's the 2-1-2 model that we talked about last week, but just think of it in these terms. We're subtracting a day from each of the twos. So the kids are only coming in one day and one day for the first 2 weeks. In the first week, it's a half day on each one day, then one full day, then into the 2-1-2 if everything is, fingers crossed, going well. So maybe that was probably maybe a better way to explain it.
Okay, I got it.
I apologize. I apologize.
Just in terms of when parents might find out, any idea timeline wise when parents could find out what day their kids? I'm just trying to think of scheduling for parents.
Sure. So through the chair, we what I anticipate, and it may not happen, but it will happen more than likely this weekend. I will communicate with our families what our reopening plan is, and let them know that next steps will become, they will hear from their students' building principals directly. The building principals will be sending out new survey information, looking for if their child is looking for hybrid, remote, and if they're going to take the bus. And then from that point forward, once we get that data back and we know what we have, for people coming in, then we will look at teasing out, the days and things like that. So, Dr. Chamberlain, I don't know if you had any further thought.
The only other thing is we are currently working on, we finally got a list of all our students that are siblings, right? Because that's the other piece, is that dividing line that was shared with principals this morning for them to take a look at. So we can begin to say, okay, this looks like a good dividing point, right, for the two groups. And I think that then that's going to help with that assignment process. So that's well in the works. So hopefully once the model rolls out, we won't be too far away from letting kids know when they're coming.
And then through the chair too, just to continue that conversation. So once that information's out, then every child's building principal is going to be hosting probably 1 or 2 town hall meetings to go through, what our reentry plan is, assuming that school committee, reviews and approves it. So we'll have a couple of town hall meetings where principals are able to address specific questions by building. In conversation with Dr. Chamberlain this morning, we anticipate that could be 1 or 2, maybe 3 if it was necessary in a particular building. And then we would start thinking about orientations. How are we getting our kids and families acclimated to their teachers or to their new school buildings? And so we'll be talking to the union tomorrow about working out some sort of a system where, our teachers are reaching out to children and families prior to the beginning of school on the 16th. So we're really trying to, as best we can, we're really trying to just ease everybody back into this, starting in August, once we get the return to school plan in place, to then go to town meetings and then go into orientation meetings by school, and then the start of school the 16th or so.
And just add in there, as well as training
Yes.
for families and for students on the learning platforms,
Yes.
so that they have that information before school starts.
Question.
Bless you.
The town hall meetings, is that going to be online, or you're not in person?
No. So there'll be like in this Zoom format here. Dr. Chamberlain and myself will more than likely will probably split the schools. We haven't talked about this yet, Dr. Chamberlain, but I'm presuming.
Okay.
I'm presuming that we would split the schools, and so that we would be in attendance at one of us would be in attendance at least in one building with the principal or principals, to help offer a district perspective, if that's needed. But to really let our administrators in the buildings really own the plan and start to work it with their families, again, to make them feel comfortable, in the return. The other part too, and I know, there's also some, people are still kind of on the fence. Do I come? Do I stay? What do I do? Remote learning, we are obligated to provide a remote learning option to all of our students who elect that. And so while some students may say right now at the outset, well, I prefer hybrid or I prefer remote, there may be some changing, or desire to change as they go through this process. We don't have a choice, and I'm not saying that we would prohibit this anyway, but the state's very clear that, it's the constitutional rights of our kids that they can choose either one at any time. It's upon us as a school system to figure out, how to accommodate kids. So, if someone says, yeah, I'm all in hybrid, and then they decide like September 12th, like, no, I'm not. I think maybe I'm not going to do that. We are obligated, and we would do that anyway. It's the right thing to do, to accommodate, a switch like that. So I know that's also something that's out there as well.
I have another question now.
Sure.
If a family elects remote learning for their child, who's going to provide it? The class teacher they would have been in, or
Sure.
someone else, or?
Dr. Chamberlain, would you like to take that, or?
Sure.
Sure, okay.
So some important information to inform that is we have to get the surveys out first to see what students and how many students we're talking about that want to learn in that environment. And second, what staff feel as though they need to teach in that environment. So we have those surveys ready to go. So we're going to figure that out.
Okay.
Hope is that, it might work out beautifully, that we have a set of teachers who for, health reasons or whatever need to stay remote. And we're going to be able to marry that with the students who feel the same. But that's going to take some planning, and we just need a lot more information about that as to the specifics with how it'll work out. But we are currently looking at some learning platforms that can be used in that virtual space to kind of facilitate some of that and to give that remote teacher some tools to make that remote learning environment more powerful. So we're looking at that too.
Excellent. That sounds good.
All right, anybody else have any questions? Meg, you all set?
Yeah, so, and the nurses are on board with this, right? Within the district,
Yes,
this plan?
with the chair, yes.
Okay, no, I have no other questions.
Yeah, no, Through the chair, just, so yeah, I mean, this, you know, this actually, you know, it gives, like I said, it gives everybody kind of an easier transition to start the school year. So, you know, if I'm looking through the lens of a school nurse, for example, knowing that I'm coming in and seeing, you know, my first cohort of kids for half a day, and then my first cohort of kids in cohort B for half a day, you know, 1 day a week, and then a full day, it's going to allow them hopefully to start to kind of get a feel for, all right, you know, what does this look like in the schools? And it actually is a much better, it's a much better approach, I think, than just everybody showing up, you know, Monday is all cohort A kids, and, you know, and then we're expecting kids the next day. If something has to be tweaked or changed or rethought, we can receive kids, and then we have a couple of days to think about it through the first 2 weeks of school. It also gives our custodians an opportunity to really kind of, you know, evaluate their ability to, you know, to clean rooms and work out their routines. Same thing for lunch, people, you know, lunch lady, the lunch staff, and, you know, and our teachers and whatnot. So yes, they're on with it.
Great, thank you.
I think it's also worth noting that the leadership team, they've worked so hard on this, and things change and evolve every single day. And I truly believe in all of you, and you guys want what's best for the kids. I think it comes down to our teachers and leadership want to see the kids as much as possible. They have so many fears themselves about what's gone on, you know, over the past 6 months. So I don't know. I definitely think, you know, we're going to keep working at it along the way, but this is a really good start. Personally, I feel that way. So
it's a new school year, so these kids need to know who their teacher is.
Totally.
A lot easier in March for me to get my kids to do remote learning when I could tell them I was going to tell their teacher and they knew who their teacher was. So I think that's really important to get them to establish these relationships as much as possible.
I agree, Meg. Totally, 100%.
One more question.
Sorry, Gail.
I'm sorry, Jesse.
No, go
Are
ahead.
they thinking of allowing the children to use the cafeterias, or are they going to be eating in their classrooms? Has that been
Yeah,
figured out yet?
so through the chair, so that's a great question, Gail. So that's one of the, that's probably, I mean, there are many challenging issues to this reopen, but I have to say that the lunch issue is probably the one that may cost us the most angst and anxiety and thought, you know, around what we're doing here. Because, you know, the other thing that I had brought up, or actually Dr. Chamberlain brought it up to me rather in a conversation today, was, you know, it's not just lunch, you know, kids like at the elementaries, they have snack time. You know, the older kids, you know, might grab a granola bar mid-morning or whatever. And so how are we going to kind of navigate, you know, kind of the complexities of that, you know, in addition to the lunch setting? And so, you know, every building in terms of cafeteria space and its size, and things like that, all offer their own challenges. And so those are some of the things over the next, you know, couple of weeks we're really going to dig into. Now that we kind of have an academic model, I believe, you know, ready to go to families, now it really becomes kind of building in all of these, you know, other details that are so important to the child's school day.
Through the chair, can you add, please, water bottle usage to your assessment of snack time and lunchtime?
Sure.
Thank you.
In terms of sharing, non-sharing?
No, I just mean a lot of, usually, I mean, you know, usually kids have them with them all day and they just have them on their desk and they're able to do whatever they need, you know, they drink all day long. And I think that, you know, for some kids might not be a big deal, but some really might affect them. So.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, those are all those right. Those are all those kind of, you know, these details that as we continue to flesh this out, you know, what a school return looks like, you know, that's a legitimate issue that just came up, you know. Another legitimate issue that Joe and I stumbled upon this morning, just totally haphazardly, he and I were talking about physical plant concerns as it relates to our emergency plans, you know, because we have to have certified emergency plans through APD and the AFD. And there's a state requirement on how you store hand sanitizer and where you put hand sanitizer and things like that. So, they're just, the more we walk forward, the more we walk into like that. I wasn't expecting when I got out of bed this morning to think about where are we storing, 10 tons of hand sanitizer. But now you got to figure it out because otherwise you're violating a code, so it's just one of these, it's just one thing after another, after another, after another. So, but yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that, kids and water bottles in classrooms. Hadn't even crossed my mind yet. Now
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. Now it has.
Dottie, thinking of that, if they could have their water bottle at their desk all day, then they wouldn't have to wear a mask because they could say they're always drinking.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and you joke, Gail. I mean, like, and you say that in jest, but I've already started to get some questions about like, well, so-and-so doesn't like stuff to touch their ears. Can they get an exception to not wear the mask? I mean, that's already coming in. First, I'm not the person that decides that. But second, I think we're going to have to kind of recalibrate what we think is an inconvenience between or like a necessity versus what's just an inconvenience you kind of just have to deal with.
And through the chair to that point, in addition to the reopening, this information being in the reopening plan, we're also going to have to bring amendments to our school handbooks back to you as well.
Right.
All of that information is going to need to be wrapped into that too. So, but no, that's another great point that that we will be traversing. I mean, the reality of it is, unless there's a medical documented issue, there's really no flexibility. The only continued dialogue around this will be PK to 1.
Right.
But even on school buses, if you're PK to 1, they're saying you have to wear it on the school bus, but the guidance then changes when you walk into a school building. So it's, so we're going to continue to ferret these things out and work with them, but it's one after another, after another, after another. So,
yeah.
And Jesse, through the chair, one more thing. We just to, reiterate what Jesse said, I know that you have lots of us coming at you, Casey and Beth, with questions and concerns, in addition to all the parents. We really, really appreciate all of the hours and hours of thought and effort and emotion that have gone into this. So I hope that in all of the dissection that has taken place through all of the documents we have, that our appreciation is not lost, because like you said, it's like layers of an onion and everyone is kind of in uncharted waters that we're working through together. So but please accept our thanks for putting this together. Absolutely.
No, you're welcome. And we're happy to do it. As I was listening to the commissioner this morning, he was talking about this being, unequivocally the most difficult, time that any of us are going to face in education. And that's just the nature of the beast right now, and so we'll get through it. But yeah, it's just kind of just getting through these things and have to make course corrections as they come up. So.
I agree. Yeah, that was great, Dot. Seriously, I mean, I think it's our leadership team and our teachers and staff. They are number one, and they are thinking of all of these issues as well and taking them with a grain of salt. And I think we as a committee just need to kind of trust the system a little bit and go with it. And, just remember it is evolving and there's plenty of time to make adjustments and, speak up and course correct or whatever it may be. I don't know, but I think we need to trust this, the leadership and keep moving forward as much as possible. So. All right, if there are no more questions or concerns, I'm going to take it to a vote. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. All right. Could I get I'm going to do a roll call vote. Dr. McCrillis?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
And myself, Mrs. Harrington? Yes. It is a vote.
Great. Thank you.
Now on to new business.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just under new business, kind of move off of COVID for a little while and talk about something educational. Obviously, with towards the end of the school year, in addition to the COVID-related issue that we were dealing with, we obviously had a rise in social justice activity across the country with the death of George Floyd. And during my final days as principal of Auburn High School, there was an outpouring of desire to talk about social justice issues within the context of Auburn High School, but also within the context of the Auburn Public Schools in general. So for those that directly outreached me, alumni, current students, parents, and others that I had come into contact with when I went to kind of observe a couple of the protests that happened here in Auburn, I offered to put together a meeting of everyone interested to just talk about the issue of social justice in a very open and general way, and to talk about their experiences, in Auburn, in their lives, whatever they wanted to share. And then to extend that conversation to talk about what, if anything, and I believe there's a lot to do, but what, if anything, after those early conversations might be next steps for the Auburn Public Schools to, to take as it relates to evaluating, our curriculum and our programming for students and staff around not just issues of social justice, but multicultural issues and other issues that will be related. We haven't done that and we've done it in spots, but in my 15 years here, we haven't had a wholesale just kind of review of, what's best practice in having the conversation. So on August 6th, starting at 1, there's approximately 30 parents, teachers, alumni, faculty, student, staff that are going to be having this conversation. And then from there, getting their feedback on kind of what they think some next steps should be. And then we will be discussing this, obviously, with you and with building administrators and kind of starting to formulate a PK to 12, committee or team or whatever, however we want to phrase it. It's still yet to be determined. But to, kind of take a look at, what is the role of the Auburn Public Schools, with respect to social justice? What should the programming be, for our students and teachers? What things are already in place? What things do we need to refine? What things do we need to add? So Dr. Chamberlain and I are excited to begin that work. And as I say in my memo to you, all of you are welcome to join in if you just want to listen on that conversation next week. I'm happy to send you the Zoom link to it. I'm excited to open the conversation and get this rolling. It's important, and we need to make sure that we're covering this for our community, but for our families and staffs that are most impacted by this right now. So that's just information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair, if you could send the link, that would be great.
Okay, happy to do that. I'll send it to all of you. If you want to drop in, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah, and knowledge is power, and I think that's where we're at with this. I think it's definitely something that should be talked about, can be talked about, and a learning experience for all. So I think it's a good idea. I will tune in for that.
Great, thank you. We look forward to having your support and your comments and everything else, because certainly we'll be partners with you in that as well. So thank you.
Okay, next is the teaching and learning report. Dr. Chamberlain.
Hey everyone, thank you very much. So first, just wanting to give you an update on the ESY Summer School. So as you know, we welcomed back 8 students for in-person support for a half day, for 4 days each week. It has gone tremendously well. Staff they've all been thrilled to be back with kids. And likewise, it seems the kids are accordingly happy to be back with them. Throughout that program, they're also making daily connections with those who are still learning remotely, but who are their peers that they would be learning with. And that's also been very well received. We had a lovely email from one of our parents this morning just about how thrilled she's been with the whole experience. And in addition to that, as you can imagine, when we closed in March, there were many of our students who were in the process of going through the testing process for special education. And that all kind of came to a screeching halt given the closure. This week we started scheduling some of those children to come in. Again, it's being done at the middle school with some of our school psychologists and team chair staff to begin the testing process, so that we get a bit of a jump on it, because we're going to have a backlog when school resumes, and this will help to mitigate some of that. The initial reporting from the people doing the testing, there was some hesitation on their part at first. They were a little worried, even though we have all the PPE, we have screens, there are protocols for greeting the student, for drop off and all of that. And in short time, they have said it has just gone beautifully. They've been so happy to be able to get started again. They're happy to be back kind of in some kind of a groove. So Mrs. Reedy's done a tremendous job with building that. So we're very, very pleased. And it certainly has given us a little bit of a taste of what it's like to have kids in school. So it's gone very, very well.
Absolutely.
Great. To share with you that Mr. Bouvier, Mrs. Worsbicky, and I did come together to put in, with Dr. Hanfield's guidance, a competitive technology grant through the Center for Strategic Initiatives. This came out through DESE. This is where we applied for funding for hotspots. So we, in collaboration with the principals, we have just a general idea of what we might need. And so we did put in for 50 hotspots to the tune of $21,494. That includes the monthly subscription fee that you pay for the hotspot. And we, the commissioner noted today that we may know sometime next week if we receive that money. So that would be a great addition to programming that we're able to offer to families. So, and finally, we've also applied for, well, it's a designation of funding from DESE through the Coronavirus Relief Fund that we may be eligible for up to 220, they're basing it, the value on $225 per student. The leadership team with Mrs. Worsbicky's leadership, we've been compiling a list of needs. The needs can range, it certainly can cover things like PPE, but it can also cover technology needs, professional development time, if we need additional staffing for things in the initial phases. It can't fund positions per se, but if we needed something additionally directly related to COVID, it can fund that. So we're looking at a wide range of things from laptops to make sure every teacher has a good laptop so that if we go remote, they have a camera, they have a good tool to use for that. I'm going to be providing some books for everyone on how to create effective videos in the remote learning environment. That comes highly recommended. We've upped our professional development line so that teachers can have paid time for planning as well as professional development. A wide range of things that are being put in there. Things related to teletherapy or SLPs, excuse me. Sorry, that was next door. So a wide range of things that we'll be looking for. The grant is due August 31st, and the funding expires at the end of December. So it's all for things that we need to get and have prior to that. But it's a great opportunity to really fill in our technology gaps primarily, along with some other things. So it's going to be great.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that. That was great. I do have a question about the summer school. Are the kids eating lunch there?
No, it's a half day.
Okay.
It's a half day, but they do have a snack in the morning. And certainly it's a very small number of students and staff. And so they've just really, it's spacing, right? Making sure that everybody's spaced appropriately. When they take breaks, they're taking breaks outside individually. So they're not, and remembering these are our students with some pretty significant needs. They have all individual materials that they use, whether in the classroom or when they go outside for a break. So they are doing that, and it's the spacing that they provide for the kids when they're having the snack. So, and it's gone very well.
Great.
So through the chair, actually on that, can I just ask one other question? Is Dr. Reedy looking at, and really even Casey as well, are you guys considering any additional type of orientation for some of our children in the special needs program that might need a little bit of additional lead time to get used to the new landscape? I don't know if that's been considered yet, and we're kind of early in the process, but just as you're mentioning what we've done to get the ones in building used to what we're doing. So
yeah, so through DESE, we are really encouraged to have any students that have extraordinary needs, high needs children in more frequently. So we're trying to work out a schedule when we return to school. Some of these students may eventually come to school every day.
Okay.
And we're trying to work that out because they are certainly at a higher risk for significant regression in their learning.
Right.
And so along with oftentimes additional services that they need, whether it be speech or occupational therapy or physical therapy. So we are looking to create a separate schedule for them. So we may have some kids that come to our building every day. Now, again, it's going to be a phased in approach.
Sure.
That reflects what Dr. Hanfield talked about, but we are definitely looking at that because they truly need it. And we may include in that group, as time goes on, some of our EL students that are at, our 1s and 2s who really, their language is just developing.
Right.
Because in the same way, they are at a higher risk for greater regression than most students. So yes, we are looking at that.
Sure. Great. Because it just makes sense that especially while the buildings are more empty, in particular for some of our kids with behavioral issues, that might be a good time to let them kind of have free roam, get comfortable. So I'm glad to hear that that's part of the plan. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that the beauty of our plan is our kids are already 6 feet apart. So when they are eating or anything,
Right.
they're separated. And I think that's going to make things a heck of a lot easier when we get more kids in the building.
I completely agree with that, Meg. That was a smart move from the start, I think, on everyone's part here.
Yeah, totally. I agree. That was, because if we were dealing with 3 feet apart right now, I just feel like we'd be backpedaling constantly trying to answer, questions and solve even more problems. So, yeah, good call, Meg, from the very start in the Return to School Club. So, yeah. You put the nail in the coffin on that one.
Too many CDC documents. I apologize.
I'm sorry, Beth. One more question. The hotspots, are those like designated for people's homes, or what were you thinking with that?
Yeah, so they would be, so we need to do some more investigation around who are our families, and we have a good idea that really struggle with internet service. Because if we're going to address the issue of equity and making sure that everybody receives what they need, this is certainly one of them. So kids that we found during the closure that didn't respond, didn't often participate, who, in phone calls said, we have a hard time with the internet and we tried to navigate that in the closure. We now know who some of those families are, and that's what it'll be. They will get this hotspot for their home so that the child can have appropriate access when it's needed. Because even if we go to that 212, there's going to be 3 days a week that
Right.
can be home learning. So they're going to need a reliable source for that.
That is amazing. That makes my heart happy, that the district would cover those costs and, to get everyone on the same playing field and equal opportunities. So, wow, that is great. And I hope that happens, definitely. So, all right. Any more comments or questions from the committee? All right. Mrs. Worsbicky, you're up with your business and financial report.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I provided in your packet a year-to-date budget dated July 23rd, 2020, and I'd be happy to answer any questions with regard to that. Seeing none, I guess, no. I'll move on to, I've also provided a small listing of transfers. There's actually just 3 different transfers on that sheet between series that just to kind of clean things up in the budget for 2021 that I'm looking for your approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions as well on that.
Okay, could I get a motion?
Make
I'll
a
make
motion
a motion.
to approve the budget transfers as provided by the business manager.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor, Dr. McCrillis?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Holloway?
Yes.
And Mrs. Harrington, myself, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes my report. Thank
Oh,
you.
short and sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do we need executive session?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. Just, yeah, a quick one, please.
Okay. All right. So could I get a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with regard to litigation.
Okay, and Dr. McCrillis,
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mrs. Holloway,
Yes?
and myself, yes.
I don't think
Thank you, everybody. Have a great